Live from New Orleans, it's theCUBE. Covering VeeamON 2017. Brought to you by Veeam.
Welcome everybody, this is theCUBE's coverage, special coverage of VeeamON 2017 from New Orleans. theCUBE is the leader in live tech coverage. And this is our second day, wall-to-wall coverage. I'm Dave Vellante with Stu Miniman. Danny Allan is here, he's the Vice President of Cloud and Alliance Strategy at Veeam. Danny, big week for you.
Very exciting to be here, my first VeeamON, so you can imagine how excited I am.
Us too, so Cloud and Alliance Strategy, what is the strategy there? Sum it up for us.
So, kind of three things. There's to the cloud, from the cloud, within the cloud. So if you break those out, most organizations today what they're doing, or what they do is they use their backups, they push them up to the cloud. Some of those that are in areas where they care about disaster recovery are using disaster recovery as a service. Both of those kind of pushing services up to the cloud. From the cloud would be things like SaaS services. You have Office 365, pull the data down, protect it because it belongs to you. And then within the cloud, we see now customers with cloud hosted workloads and they say, I want to keep my protection, but in a different cloud, in a multi-cloud world.
Yeah, interesting, there was in the keynote this morning, they said, well, you know, today's going to be cloud day, but yesterday you had some AWS announcements too. I mean, we know today you can't talk about IT without having cloud and kind of the hybrid multi-cloud, you know, get dispersed everywhere. A lot of announcements, you know, one I was hoping you could dig into a little bit for us is the Veeam powered network with Azure, and you know, maybe give us kind of the quick overview and let's drill down in there a little bit.
Sure, so one of the capabilities we've had for a while is this ability to do direct restore to Azure. So you have a VM, it goes down and you hit a button and it goes up to Azure. Now that's all great, but when that server was in your data center, you could actually just connect to it because it was on your network. One of the challenges is when you put something up in the cloud, how do you get your users to that service? It's a different IP, it's a different subnet, it's a different network. And so this is to make it simple. We've always focused on it just works, so this is a model that we can do a very simple model to connect users to the service when we push it up into the cloud. Yeah,
maybe, I mean, I think most people in cloud understand like the Amazon VPN service. Right. Could you maybe compare and contrast that with what you've got?
Very similar, so Amazon does the VPC, and this just takes it down and simplifies it so that it's part of your orchestration strategy. So typically when you have something running up in the cloud, what happens is you set it up, the connection, and you maintain that connection for the duration of that service. This is a little bit different because you want the connection, but only when you need it. And so it's orchestrating that connection in a very simple, lightweight way that you don't have to maintain an ongoing connection that enables that service delivery.
There's a lot of talk at events like this, and certainly has been at this event, about just migrating workloads and help us square the circle. So you hear a lot of that talk, and at the same time you hear about data explosion, data growth, and then there's the speed of light problem. So how are customers sort of managing that, and how can you help?
So I don't necessarily believe that organizations are migrating from cloud to cloud on a regular basis, but what does happen is they outgrow the cloud that they happen to be in. We see this in private cloud all the time. I have so much capacity, I don't have any left, I need to, you know, jump over to another cloud. So there's kind of three drivers that cause people to go into a multi-cloud era. One is certainly disaster recovery. Second though is cost optimization and business alignment. So sometimes you'll have, at an executive level far above IT, says, hey, we strategically align with this cloud, we would like to shift workloads over to another one. And then the last is around really the footprint of the cloud provider themselves. So it could be because of geophysical location or compliance certifications that organizations say, I need to take this particular service and move it over here.
We've had some talk about cloud service providers as a channel this week. And what's the discussion like with CSPs in terms of them monetizing services, and how do you help with whether it's, you know, software defined something or programmatic, you know, thresholds through APIs? Can you and how do you support that monetization strategy?
So a few different things. One is that the cloud service providers are very focused on their specific value add. And if you go talk to them, some are heavy in security, some are heavy in the managed services, some are heavy in the analytics. They all have a specific value add that they have. But one of the things that we do for them is in the platforms that we've announced, like Veeam Availability Console has a full RESTful API that they can integrate into their environment. Take Island, for example. They have their own portal, they call our APIs. Customer never sees anything other than their specific portal. And that's true for all of the products that we've been announcing. Veeam Availability Console, Veeam Backup for Office 365. We enable that integration with our product set.
Yeah, one of the other announcements that we were digging into a little bit is to be able to have an archive tier with a lot of the object storage out there, whether it be, what's the Amazon Blob, some of the AWS offerings, or any kind of S3 or Swift compatible solutions. Is that something you've been hearing customers asking for a while? How do you expect that to roll out?
It is, so there's two kinds of customers. Those that say, hey, I would like to leverage the hyperscale public clouds for S3 or Azure. We have credits with them, we want to use them up. And so this enables them to push off in an archive tier the data up to there. We also see organizations, especially the large ones, that are building their own on-premises object storage because of the characteristics of scale up, scale out. And they've been saying, hey, we want to leverage that. Now, the performance historically has not been as good as block storage, obviously, but now it's catching up and people are using it more for an archive tier than a primary tier or secondary tier.
The other day at the analyst briefing, you talked about, there were 3 themes that came out. One was digital transformation and agility, and we want to explore that a little bit. The other was just core business continuity, and the third was analytics and visualization. I wonder if we could stick on that for a minute, that analytics and visualization. Can you explain a little bit further what you guys bring to the table there and how customers are using it?
So one of the things that Veeam has is an archive of all of your data that is stored. And we've been looking to expose that data to our partners so that they can dig into it and add their value. So we announced a partnership with Data Gravity, for example, that reaches into those VMs. And as regulations like GDPR come out, then there is a higher and higher business need, General Data Protection Regulation, a higher and higher business need to understand what is in the data that we're storing and then perform analysis on it.
Yeah, so GDPR takes effect like basically a year from now, right?
Yeah,
so
May.
It's May of 18. We've had also a lot of discussion about ransomware.
Yes.
And just creating air gaps and so forth. And the reason why I was so interested in analytics and visualization is it seems that it would require more than just an air gap, because Bill Philbin said it today, when you make a boo-boo, the boo-boo gets replicated very quickly. Well, when somebody's maliciously encrypting your data, it probably gets maliciously encrypted very, very quickly or replicated very quickly. So it would seem that you are in a unique position to provide analytics on anomalous behavior on change data.
Yes.
Has that discussion taken place with your partners and clients?
Yes, absolutely. We're looking at it. In fact, there was a breakout session on this very thing. Basically, when you saw the files being deleted from a particular folder or .docx files being changed to .enc files, when you saw a ransomware attack taking place, that you could actually roll back to the latest snapshot, or you could take a snapshot and send an email to someone and say, hey, this is happening, you should look at it. I look forward actually out into the future that we can leverage some of the things that we're doing now with continuous data protection that traps the I/O traffic. So that is the vSphere API for I/O filtering. And if you see an attack taking place, you could actually roll back that I/O journal, say 5 minutes, and say take a snapshot at that point, even before it happens. So it has more behavioral-based protections associated with it. So I think we're at a really interesting era in this space where we're going to begin to see new things that have never been done in the past.
And potentially specific solutions around ransomware. People talk about it generically, but maybe they're out there. I just haven't seen a very specific, I'm sure they are out there, but I haven't seen a specific solution around that. And it seems like the guy with the backup data would be in a unique position to do that.
Yeah, the data is the lifeblood of the organization, right? So being able to mine it for data insights, being able to leverage that for data governance, being able to use it for e-discovery, but also to be able to use it in proactive ways for the business, like determining that a ransomware attack is taking place and perhaps fire off instructions to your perimeter to act differently. Who knows what these things are going to go towards, but the data is the content that actually drives a lot of those behaviors.
Yeah. Danny, one of the things I found interesting, Mark Rosinovich's keynote, he was talking about, he called it the evolution of application platforms, and Veeam started with the VM, and I saw a lot of the show. There's physical endpoints, there's cloud endpoints. When you start going to things like PaaS and even serverless functions as a service, what impact will that have on availability overall, and where does Veeam see that going in your world?
So our vision is to perform always-on availability for any service. So as we go forward into containers and serverless, there's still a requirement to provide protection. So I was listening to him as he was saying, hey, there could be an API that resizes the image. You could actually use that exact same API to say, hey, is that image important? Send it over to this repository for retention, right? And so there's still a requirement for availability, and what it means is, if you're looking at PaaS and kind of container type model, then maybe we do it underneath the containers to protect them as they're running. But if you're looking at serverless, maybe we actually inject it into the APIs itself to perform that same protection. It's going to be required no matter what the structure of the data happens to be.
We're out of time, but Danny, maybe a quick summary of the announcements that you guys made this week and some of the things that people are excited about.
Yeah, so a lot of different announcements, obviously. Veeam Availability Console release candidate is out. We announced a whole lot of disaster recovery as a service functions for service providers, things like continuous data protection, things like BCD integration. We announced Veeam Backup for Office 365, actually 2 different versions of it. One is for service providers, multi-tenant, multi-repository, but also adding in SharePoint and OneDrive capabilities. We, obviously, our flagship product, Veeam Availability Suite, we talked a lot about the object storage, we talked about continuous data protection. A lot of these capabilities have been announced over the last few days.
Yeah, so Veeam, you've seen a lot of strategy, hitting R&D, turning it into product, turning into customer value and revenue. So you guys have been busy and quite an impressive stream of innovation coming out this week. So Danny, thanks very much for coming on theCUBE and sharing that with us.
Thank you very much, appreciate being here.
Okay, keep it right there everybody, we'll be back with our next guest. This is Dave Vellante and Stu Miniman live from VeeamON 2017. Right back.